Coast, the word poetry carved on both the east and west sides, planted in a garden on the street corner in Yakima, push pins stuck in the wood. For 10 years, hundreds of people have pinned thousands of poems on Blue Begonia Press. After time in the weather, the pages have been taken down and saved until now. The poems collected in weathered pages represent a decade of testimony, pinned and flying from a cedar post planted in a garden. The first weathered pages editor I would like to introduce is Rob Prout. Mr. Prout teaches photography at Davis High School, and his photos have been exhibited throughout Washington State, including some in our own Larson Gallery. With his recent pieces, he has been working with digital photography technology. Rob has worked with Blue Begonia Press in design and book covers, and took the portraits in Seeking Light in Each Dark Room. Mr. Prout is also a former slow-pitch first baseman. Our next weathered pages editor is Dr. Terry Martin. She is an English professor at Central Washington University who is finishing up a one-year sabbatical. Terry received her undergraduate degree at Western Washington University and earned her PhD in English education at the University of Oregon. Terry's many accomplishments include Distinguished Teaching Professor in 2000, the CWU Presidential Award for Leadership in 2002, and in 2003 she was named Washington State Professor of the Year. Her creative writing has appeared in numerous literary journals and anthologies, and in 2000, Blue Begonia Press published her first book of poetry, Wishboats. Our next weathered pages editor is Mr. Dan Peters. Mr. Peters grew up and lives in Selah with his wife and 2 children. He attended Willamette University and the University of Montana. He taught at West Valley High School for 3 years and has been a teacher at YVCC for 5 years. Mr. Peters has helped edit several books at Blue Begonia Press and has published 2 of his own through the press, including The Reservoir. The last person I'd like to introduce tonight is Mr. Jim Bodine. Mr. Bodine is the publisher and editor of Blue Begonia Press. He is also a literature and writing instructor of Latino students at Davis High School and is the keeper of the poll. Mr. Bodine holds the unique honor of having 2 bachelor's degrees and 2 master's degrees. He has authored several books of poetry, including Whole House is Shaking, Impulses to Love, and most recently, This House, a poem in 7 books. Mr. Bodine, who writes in both English and Spanish, edited the book With My Hands Full, a bilingual anthology of poems by 35 young Latino writers. So, please welcome our guests. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm going to read 2 poems from the anthology, and for those of you who like to follow along, the first one's on page 203. It's called If We Could Go Out to Lunch. And I'm going to give a brief disclaimer to this poem because it's an elegy. Mother's Day was just yesterday. This is about my mother who passed away some time ago. But there's a reference in here to a time that she and I got the giggles on an Amish tour, which could make us sound very culturally insensitive. But there's a story behind it. We did great with the buggies and with the quilts and with the canning and stuff, but we came to this place where the woman in the bonnet held up these little pants, and they were this big, like 1 foot pants. And she said, "These are the pants that our Amish boys wear until the age of 12. And no one else laughed but my mother and I. It just hit us funny, and we couldn't, you know when you get going and you can't stop and egg each other on. So we're not total slimes, forgive us, it was funny, you had to be there, all right. But you'll understand that when we get to it in the poem. If we could go out to lunch. We'd sit in the booth with the river view, falls crashing over rocks, as they always have, and order salads, feeling righteous. We'd laugh at things only the 2 of us share. The woman on the bus grabbing Grandpa's new broom, thinking it was a pole. How never saying a word, he tried to hold it steady, not wanting to let her down. That time we got the giggles on the Amish tour and couldn't stop laughing, tears pouring down our faces, gasping and snorting until we were sternly ushered out into the 20th century. I tell you of the sign I saw on Old Hera Road, "Eat spuds, be strong, fear not." How this morning, reaching into the bathroom cabinet for my toothbrush, I found it ribboned with toothpaste, a small gift from my lover. I'd show you the new silver glints in my hair, deeper lines crinkling my eyes than you ever got to see. how my hands are looking more like yours. I'd ask you what you missed the most. And we'd split a dessert, creme brulee maybe, roll our eyes upward, moan at the decadence of smooth vanilla, cool beneath its crusty golden shell. Across the table, we'd hold hands and marvel at the fact that your touch was my first language and my touch was your last. And the second poem I'd like to read is called Morning Campfire. It's a love poem, and we were kind of talking in our group. I'm wondering if maybe all of my poems aren't love poems. I'm trying to figure that out, but this one is. Morning Campfire. Flames licked the early air, crackling tamarack and rising smoke, merging last night's dreams. Hands uncurl from the cup. Poking ashes with a stick, you rearrange logs. Pine and coffee scent this dawn, river rushing by as it always has, through deep canyons, cliffs scarred with age, past weathered boulders, hunched, waiting. At the confluence of many currents, you and I rest, released from the thorny thicket of old habits. Here in the rocky, dusty places, our striving means nothing. We are learning we are not who we thought we were. Fingers tracing warm knuckles, I pocket your words like small stones, shiny and private. Carry them. I have all that I need today, gratefully tilting my face upward, toward the warm, the changing light. Next up is Carolyn Calhoun.
First, I have a poem from Chelsea Johnson, and the page number didn't come out, so you'll have to just guess, go alphabetically. The person I am. The person I am is someone I don't know, someone I want to get to know. Every day, a little bit of that person comes out to speak what she has experienced. All the advice she has received has been recycled for more than it's worth. I've thrown away the ugly parts, but yet I kept the experience. It hurts, and my body can barely face its spirit. My body cannot handle my spirit's emotions, so it cries for help. There's something my spirit wants. It had that something at one time, but then it left. So my spirit waits and waits for that someday, when that something returns. Until then, my spirit panics. It flies wildly all night and all day, waiting, searching while its body cries. My spirit has experienced many things, and the only thing that can scare it is being alone. Being alone all day and all night, and knowing that it could be worse. And then my poem is on page 110, if you're following along. And I wrote this about 6 years ago, I guess now. So it's got a long title. To Bodine, a letter about houses upon the receipt of this house, with thanks, as always, from Carolyn. When I think of this house, I envision vaulted ceilings, oak cabinets, a skylight, built-in bookshelves, a porch. This is the house of my dreams, the house I love at 30. This house will probably end up on a few acres in Zillah, where we were supposed to have started, between Franklin and Prosser High, before grad school changed everything. But what I'm really seeking as I dream of this house is home. For 5 years, I have been a nomad, a transient, moving from work to school to work, from house to house, not moving far, but constantly changing, before I can get comfortable, or abandoning it, still searching for home. Of the 5 residences I've lived since being married, none have been homes. The closest to home was 9th Avenue, where Brett lived while student teaching and subbing, a dilapidated house, too cold in winter, no air conditioning in summer, peeling paint, a rotting roof. But it was there we fell in love, so its appearance became endearing, and my memories of it always warm. I want more than I did at 23. The series of addresses since mirrors storage units, needing us no more than we needed them. No lawn to care for, no fixing the landlord's job, no pets allowed. We can leave for a weekend or for weeks, it doesn't matter. Nothing will have changed. We are ready to mow the lawn, plant flowers, get a cat, to make this house into a place that's hard to leave, a place like marriage to work on together, to clean, to fix, to paint, to furnish, to decorate, to pull weeds, to plant trees, to water, to love. To look back on memories, good and bad, fondly. Homes need maintenance, inside and out. I envision this house, this home, full of light, full circle on a 5-year cycle, where I sit on the porch, finally still, on a summer evening watching my horses graze.
Our next reader is Brett Dillahunt, and I'm going to stop this. I didn't mean for this slideshow to keep going. I think I got it. And the first poem, Chelsea Johnson, is the work study student, Chelsea, that we had in the English department for a long time. So
Excellent.
here's Brett.
I've got to take a quick departure from the weathered pages. Bear with me. My wife Carolyn just read. It's my wife's birthday. And when I asked her what she wanted for her birthday, she told me she wanted hay for the horses. And not only is that not very fun, it's really difficult to wrap. So she gets this poem instead. Feast, a birthday poem for my wife Carolyn, May 15, 2006. Fresh-faced in 16 days this side of church bells, Carolyn is sharing her dinner with me, wonderfully indifferent to surrounding avenues filled with restaurants, the best food by the best chefs, food which we can neither pronounce nor afford. She knew the money she wasn't marrying into, knew the rough pattern around my edges, yet married anyway, abandoning all hope of the fairy tale so she could dine with me on the floor of the Paris-Austerlitz train station, extending her arm in the way only a newlywed can, so that we might share this feast of bumblebee tuna. The next 5 weeks were experience taken pure, from cement floor tuna surprise in Paris to my half-assed Spanish in Sevilla, from pastoral Austria to the maniacal ride of the Budapest suicide shuttle and its underage cigarette-dangling, YouTube-blaring, death-wishing driver. From battling Roma for breakfast on the mean morning streets of Krakow to the parallel universe of Amsterdam's Hotel Kabul and its thoroughly stoned desk staff of one. Starting with my birthday 14 years ago and extending to your birthday today, a blessed feast of experience. I'd like to read Rodolfo de Leon's poem, and his poem is entitled Things They Have Here to Take You Away From Here. And I don't have the page number as well. I'm going to read part 3 from that. Rickshaws and mopeds zip as quickly as dollars are exchanged by American tourists in Way. The forbidden purple city is gray as rubble, and there are no gates at the 7 gates into the garden. The 9 urns etched with sun, moon, meteors, clouds, mountains, rivers that honor the power and stability of the throne are bleak and bullet-riddled, and the ashes have gone the way of the grim dust. The tourists take pictures anyway. A young man, an amputee, lies fast asleep on the sidewalk with his unstrapped artificial leg next to him. People walk by, around, over him. Cars honk, bikes beat, little boys holding postcards, cat-call to foreigners. Sizzle escapes from the street shops and police blow their whistles as he snores to the humdrum of an everyday lullaby. And the weathered pages of mine I'm going to read is entitled Moxiunqua. Moxiunqua is a set of Anasazi ruins in the mountains of New Mexico. Abandoning Dave's red Chevy at the wash, only the noise of thought and machine break the silence. No one is here, and no one is coming. Driving the bike up every hill and rise for 11 miles, exhaustion, a broken wall. We pass broken frames of cabins, abandoned in the 20s when the timber wouldn't pay, staring us down like gape-toothed old men, folds of rotted bark and moss hanging from the doorway, aged skin, fragile bones. A Moxiunqua is up ahead, 700 years old and waiting, rising above the bend as we pedal the last few turns to the top. I see Jemez Springs off the edge of the mesa, Soda Dam, La Cueva, Tent Rocks, Valle Grande, viewed from above for the first time. My feet crunch sandstone. No, pottery. And our next reader is Molly Bales. Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, no, Rob Prout.
Oh, Prout, sorry. Sorry. Rob Prout.
You should buy one of those.
Careful, we'll all sing happy birthday. On 73, there's a poem by Anne Byron. Anne died just a few weeks before the book came out. She battled cancer for over 5 years. She was a close friend of mine and a wife of a closer friend of mine. And her death is even mentioned in here. And I don't know when it was put on the poll, but it's a story of all of families, I guess. Brothers and sisters, I see the mark on the closet wall that recorded the date of my cousin's death, the first death to take my breath away. Oriana was a cousin who was a sister, born from my mother's twin. I needed to record the pain somewhere where only I would know it was there. The closet was my answer. This closet has returned in a dream to be remodeled to fit my new clothes, a place I can easily gather what I need, a hidden space between two rooms never before explored. It would mean making changes, tearing out and putting back the pain marked in ink. Now my brother Jerry calls. Oriana's brother Johnny has died. In the early years of my life, I had cousins, Oriana, Johnny, and Dennis, all born from my mother's twin. They lived upstairs across the street with a large green lawn between us. Oriana was older in years, and as my mind grew and expanded, hers stayed the same till she died, just after I turned 16 on a sunny day in May. On my day, I held her hand to come see the irises outside the bedroom window. I told her they bloomed just for my birthday. This year was the first time she did not play the annual game with me. Now her brother, my brother cousin, is gone. I was older than Johnny by 2 weeks. We met every day on the grass lawn playing hide and seek, bathing in large tin tubs, and picking lilac leaves for play money. I went out into the world and moved far away. Johnny stayed in his home to heal his parents, wounded by Oriana's death. I would share my life, and Johnny would ask, was I happy? Was this who I loved? How were my children? Was I doing what I wanted? He told me he was happy. He walked every day to buy fresh food for the day's meals, greeted the neighbors, treated my aunt with good food and loving company. And he would ask again, was I happy? Was I doing what I wanted? My sister Avis and I wrote to Johnny before he died. Then he found his brother gone and the letters on the table. Reading the letters, he would have known. Our children were well and we were happy and doing what we wanted. Tonight, my brother George and I talked to Denny. I hear our voices over the phone, layering each other's sentences with memories. We know so much is the same but different since we played on that large green lawn and I marked the closet wall. Molly.
No, I thought you were talking.
Molly Bales. Molly Bales. Molly Bales.
Jane. Always actually. Oh,
The title of the poem that I'll read tonight is in Italian, and the poem was written a few years ago as I was preparing to leave the country and move to Italy for a year. And it was written at a time when it was something that I had dreamed about for so long and had prepared for, and then late in the game, this distraction from my past resurfaced and threatened to kind of shake that focus that I had. So it's called La Dolce Vita, 8:28. After David Hilley's wedding reception, sitting in a Starbucks in downtown Spokane. Conflict pulses through my veins, honesty suppressed under the veil of protection, eager anticipation tormented, storms of future regret shadow the pleasures of now. 8:30, 2 days later at 6 a.m., I slide a note under his door and walk out of my house with coffee in hand. Loss of focus, convicted, forgive. Safe travels, God bless, and goodbye. 8:31, while driving home from work, the call comes minutes before breaking. Desired words of forgiveness proceed, congenialities, respect is birthed, focus returns, reaching for the tip of the iceberg. Attention to detail restores freedom in the big picture.
This is a poem that I wrote after a long trip across the Atlantic Ocean, and it's entitled Eavesdropping from Paris to St. Louis with my husband, Michael. Tired and cranky, I slide into my row, watch travelers shove bags under seats, and wonder how I'll last the 9 hours home. Then she walks down the aisle, the last passenger, and I listen to her talk across the Atlantic Ocean. A voyeur, yes, I confess, and I strain for sentences, a performance just for me. I attend to changes in personas, I hear none. Why, Parker, you're cheating. You can't have 12 cards and gin rummy. Now shuffle, love, while I go to the salle of the van. She returns. My suitcase, you should have watched it, and my wallet, she mentions before clicking her seatbelt. I maneuver my body to see them. Parker pats her hand. Her seatmate asks, why are you so cheerful? What else to do? It's so absurd. C'est la vie. The worst part is not having a passport, a driver's license. The gendarme said I mustn't lose my husband, as if I could lose Parker. She laughs up a scale. We'll have to live like Spartans, Parker. We must win the lottery for our next trip. She hands him a carrot and then a celery from her lunch in the middle of the card game. These are lovely. They don't usually include the extras. My sprouts are so fresh. By slipping onto my right side, I see the transfer of vegetables and Parker chewing. She touches his arm across the aisle and he kisses it. I pretend to sleep while my right cheek goes numb. Gin, I have gin, Parker, and you were sitting there all along with just the card I needed to think I've won all the games. She finally takes a breath. I don't know if I want to be back in St. Louis. I won't be able to drive my car. Maybe we should have stayed in Paris. I could be an analytical waitress. Her lap trips up and down another scale, and I wonder what she means by analytical. Not a sliver of irony comes from Parker's lips. Your family needs you. I spend the rest of my time imagining the family, wanting to be there for the reunion. I have another poem that I wrote after my husband's sister died, who was institutionalized. She lived in the home, and my husband never knew that. She had just didn't recognize anybody, and she screamed all the time. And it was a very sad, her life was very sad, and her passing was sad as well. And the poem is entitled Donna. You crack the chrysalis, revealing pale colors and a tiny wingspan, preventing you from feasting on nectar in our family's garden. You, a butterfly, neither chewing nor biting leaves or fruit, unlike the work of caterpillars. You sought out corners while Mother guided you from room to room, helping you find the one to rock in rhythm to your screams. Then solace seeped under doors. You folded your wings, shielding your face. We watched without words, hoping for a shift in your pose. Today, you extended your wings beyond our reach, pushing air backward, propelling you into a cloudless sky.
Mary Grimes.
After Yakima, Anitsura, 1661-1738, on the 6th anniversary of my father's death. And this was written over the last 5 days. Yesterday was the anniversary. Starts with a epigraph, little 3-line poem from Anitsura. When cherry trees bloom, birds have 2 legs, horses 4. Spring clouds the sun here, wind shakes the cottonwood. Few eyes follow the words. Before scaring a hawk from its perch, the crow scavenges the shadows across the river. Sunrise is on the bend upstream, and the crow enters the silhouette of a branch against the glare of the water. The hummingbird still at the foot of the window, white-bellied and amber green. Along the river, crows glide bank to bank.
This first poem I want to read is, she was written by one of my students at juvenile detention. And this young lady is, she was really angry, and as a lot of them are. And she was a very interesting young woman. And anyway, this poem, by the way, is on page 52. Sitting here, I look straight forward to keep from getting in trouble. The pod officer with her blue eyes staring at everyone in the room, not a person she misses, not a thing she don't catch. Her screaming to those who aren't good, heads turning to see who's getting into trouble, a smile on my face because it isn't me. One more reason to keep looking straight forward. This next poem is by Jonathan Fletcher. It's on page 119. The note in the back of the book reads, Jonathan wrote this. The poem was written as an answer to some memories. It took a little work on my part and a little guidance from my good friend Dan. I try to keep in mind what mistakes, I try to keep in mind that mistakes are just disagreeable opportunities. Fake it like devotion. Brass organ pipes every Sunday and rhythms burning up our throats. Everything comes from deals with money, with one last time. Take everything from broken stained glass, colors. Let your reasons thicken. Let them turn pink and dull. Shifting weight forward and walking, mistakes, stumbles, forgotten mid-stride. Foot down and again. Don't call it forgetting where we've been. Call it remembering for yourself. In gulps, drowning in heat, dragging and pulling, giving in. Like ignoring who we've been and what we've said to them. Shots of smoke and drags of honey, taking addresses like alcohol without history, chase it away like summertime, like mosquitoes from smoke. And then on page 226, or thereabouts, actually it's on page 229. This poem was written right after my father died, and I sold our house to a friend of mine, and during Christmas vacation, it was necessary that I clean the house out, and so that's what I've done every day. We had 2 weeks off, you know, and I spent that 2 weeks cleaning it out. And this is the Sunday of the last week, or before we have to go back to work the next day. This is that last Sunday. And my wife was helping me, and at this time we were not getting along very well because, well, when husbands and wives do things like this, they don't get along very well. Those of you that aren't married don't understand this. Those of you that are know exactly what I'm talking about. The last loaf. It begins with sharp words. In the kitchen, the pressure of death, translated from 2 sore backs and a 2 tired couple. The winter chill of morning sets the mood for the last runs. She sits against the passenger window and studies the skiff of snow on the broken sidewalk of their block. Her breath soon fogs the glass, yet she stares. He steers the big fort, seeing nothing but the lifting left to do. The Sunday morning traffic is light as most people are home reading the Herald or getting ready for church. No mass for these two. They're stuck on the wrong ends of heavy objects. Crossing 16th Avenue, he notices a man walking down Tieton Drive with a dog. The walker holds the leash in both hands. As he accelerates towards the museum, he sees the man is wearing dark glasses and a stocking hat. His hands are gloved, and as they pass, the dog walker makes a slight correction with the hand closest to the dog's collar. Neither he nor the dog breaks stride. At that moment, unknown to the walker, the driver recognizes man and dog. He has known him for 30 years, and they have been friends for 25. It is warmer in the cab. He notices his wife, and he is filled with joy. That moment, the dead father is forgotten, and his back doesn't hurt. At the end of Franklin Park, he looks back, sees his friend walking away through the blowing snow, and says, "Lisa, that was Jim Modine walking his dog." Although she says nothing in return or turns to look herself, he knows she heard him.
Linda Brown.
Earlier, we were sitting over here in a circle, and Terry Martin said something that I hadn't thought about. She said that sometimes you start to write a poem thinking you're writing one thing, and it turns out that you're writing something very different. And in reality, I think, as I think about this poem on page 67, that's what happened here. I started to write about the punishment meal that my mother made called chicken fricassee, which I think was probably, in her mind, Creole or something very, exotic. It was the the bones of the neck. It was worse than liver and onions, although we did that too. But chicken fricassee. It took 40 years to forgive my mother her chicken fricassee. Each week she filled a pot with chicken parts, wing tips and backs, gizzards and necks, bony extrusions unsuited to childish needs. Mother ruled a watery graveyard, stirring Hecate's cauldron, singing and stirring. Carcasses of despair swam in her iron kettle on those disparaging December nights. Summoned by the moment, we had to confront an offering of such paltry remnants, bowls heaping with broth so foul, so foul. How could a mother's love be so thin and parsimonious? The years bring redemption, magical gifts, memories of those wintry times, a small kitchen, steam rising from a murky sea of tiny flagships and reedy whistles, silvered windows like slivers of mercury where a child sucks on hard shards of flutes, bony treasures, savoring the rich sound of a mother's song.
Okay, so on page 254, I'm going to read the poem, The Sage of Home. And I'm reading this because yesterday was Mother's Day, and on the Yakima River there's a thing known as the Mother's Day Hatch, which is a hatch of caddis. And I had a report that Thursday that there indeed was a wonderful Mother's Day hatch. And this poem I wrote 2.5 years ago on the 1st of May, like the first line, it's the 1st of May. And there's a grace note or an allusion to a poem of my late husband, Tom Peer, from a poem of his. And I guess I chose to read this one instead of one of his because it's my poem. And one of the things poets hope that they can do, or that they strive to do, is to have an accurate observation of what's going on in the natural world and the interior world. So I guess I have this validated that there indeed is a caddis hatch in May on the Yakima River. The Sage of Home. It's the 1st of May. Again, I read your manuscript and my notes. For kilometer 0, I write the Sage of Home. Early this evening, I retrace the familiar route up the canyon. The sage is still dusty green like olive trees washed in rosy light. Stopping at a favorite pullout, I check the hatch. Caddis are emerging. You taught me how to read the water. I look for rises in feeding lanes and see a pattern dimpling here and there. I look west as the sun slips behind the curves of overlapping hills. I bend down and smell the pungent sage. Today I hope to catch not trout, but you and me and our time together on the river.
Thanks, over.
And it is my pleasure to read a poem by Tom Peer. Oh, I think I'm just a wonderful poet. I got the, see if I can find it here for you. It's on page 255. The man who fished too much. And there's an epigraph under it. We are scarce our father's shadows cast at noon. From John Donne. In the poem. At Ketchum, when he auctioned off Papa's rod, he was all redemption and regret. I once fished 200 days in a row. Then he was more Hemingway handsome than Papa, but still the chunky child in Paris, the Mr. Bumby of a movable feast, and the photo by Man Ray, a babe in his father's arms. Later, Jack fished fine and far off on the spring creek where Papa once shot ducks, with a shotgun that was soon to kill him. How many times he must have thought of his father's work, and then his own confession written between war and fishing trips, a life of misadventures, he called it. How it was to be beautiful and blessed skiing with Coop and the Sawtooths, teaching French in Idaho, bringing Spain and Shakespeare and company to the Mountain West, having adorable daughters. Beside Papa's memorial on the big wood, the aspens still shake to think of it. How cursed it is to love the surface of the earth and find the art to render this so well. Then you come to know your kin must live in the shadow of these same trees, beatific, while they wait for you and other Hemingways to die, too many at their own hands. And then I will read one by myself on page 326. The face in the window. The face in the window belongs to a woman bent to a task, her hands busy below the glass with dishes, the ironing, her sewing perhaps, or is it her life, the scattered remnants of which she sorts and resorts, trying to find sense in the nonsense of it all? Yes, she seems to say, pausing in thought, then frowning, she redoubles herself, leans into it, the grease or the regret, the something said a long time ago that came to her in the night, so that she rose ever so quietly to come here and remind me, an early morning passerby, of my own scattered life, the faces that follow me, the promises made and broken that know my secrets, how I seek solace on these solitary walks. But no matter how I atone, it is never enough. No, it's too late for that. And now my recriminations find a home in this face, in this window, which suddenly looks up and out as if to ask, what else could I have done? And then I'd like to read, indulge me here just for a minute, because I just discovered this before I came down here tonight. The poet Stanley Kunitz, who I think some of you who are younger may not have heard of him, but those of us who are older certainly have. He died yesterday at the age of 100 years old. And he was a Pulitzer Prize winner and won many other awards, but his poetry is wonderful. And this is actually his last book called The Wild Brave, which came out just a couple of years ago. He was a poet laureate when he was 95 years old. This is a productive guy. Anyway, I love this poem. It's called The Long Boat. The Long Boat. When his boat snapped loose from its mooring under the squeaking of the gulls, he tried at first to wave to his dear ones on shore, but in the rolling fog they have already lost their faces. Too tired even to choose between jumping and calling, somehow he felt absolved and free of his burdens, those mottos stamped on his name tag, conscience, ambition, and all that caring. He was content to lie down with the family ghosts in the slop of his cradle, buffeted by the storm, endlessly drifting. Peace, peace, to be rocked by the infinite, as if it didn't matter which way was home, as if he didn't know he loved the earth so much he wanted to stay forever.
Dan Peters.
person that introduced me is the person who I was driving around with when I was writing this poem in my head. I taught for 3 years at West Valley, and I have the amazing distinction of getting to teach West Valley students again here in this Writers and Ideas class. And so this poem is written about some of your classmates from West Valley. And it's written for Karen and Jessica, who were two people who died during the 30 Mile fire, and also for Jason Swift, who was a student I had who died on a Latter-day Saints mission in South America. So it's called Letter to Students Who Are Not Here. It's on page 247. In memory of Karen, Jessica, and Jason fighting a fire on a mission. Words and books, like a small creek off a high ledge, gone in the dry air. That's from Paiute Creek by Gary Snyder. The hills are green and will be for as long as a month. Then, as the cheatgrass matures, they will turn red. By the time you come home, fewer than before, they will have changed to various shades of brown. Now, though, they are green, and some mornings, when clouds cover the valley, you can squint your eyes and almost believe you are in another country, where all year long the hills remain as round and bright as these ridges are today. Not quite a year ago, I wrote another letter. I said, I don't have anything other than easy answers that seem tired before I can get them out of my mouth. Much later, I saw things were passing through me. You could call it grief, or maybe it was just so much had changed. My friend, who was my high school teacher, drove me around for more than an hour. He said, I went to landscape. He copied down this line, no one loves rock, yet here we are. Beginning with Murray's letter before Christmas, old words have come back in new ways. I don't know what to do with this either. Then it happened 5 times in 5 months. Bales and Hyler and Matson and the Raspy. And 2 days ago, another friend, a long-distance runner, brought down what was left of my resistance. Outside my window, the sound of a lawnmower drifts back and forth. I am not where I was, and you are not here anymore. The ridges changed as they did before any of this happened, before we lost so much. That's no kind of answer, but I will stand by it. Across the valley, I can see pillars of smoke where orchards stood. The trees behind your high school, empty of blossoms in the wind and rain. Meanwhile, those beside the river continue to fill with leaves. Here's Janelle Howell, my neighbor.
Please take a drink of water. Okay. Moments for my dad, Ted Jonas. I'm 23 walking your lab under pipes suspended from the Shell oil refinery in Anacortes. My 9-passenger station wagon, safe enough for any daughter, docked where pavement meets bay. I am searching for a skipping stone, clams for the grill. Holes crumble and cave with each scoop, lift, and turn. Bo keeps people cautious, chases sticks, gulls beyond a shout. In those moments where tide is neither here nor gone, thoughts pull hand over hand like words of a song, familiar yet forgotten. What I remember is this: your thick fingers folding over my 5-year-old hand, knuckled like a butter clam, deep in your palm, the sun rising over Diamond Head through the hair on your right arm. Bouncing on your knee to the chug of the tractor, mud chips chopping air, the steering wheel too big to turn? Standing in your boots, a size too large, I want to know your story, Dad. Searching bubbles in the slip is a telling of truths beyond what I can see. The tide circles my surprise, taking your boots beneath the surface. On hands and knees I reach in, beyond elbow, grasping one boot, then another, pulling them free. Bow meets me at rippled edge. We turn and watch tracks disappear. A passing boat breaks bow against wave, moving along the grain of pain and regret. Water bends light to sky, spilling over my face, arms open to wind, breathing me home. If you don't mind, I'd like to read one more. I wrote, I don't know, a few days ago. So it's a little rough, but it speaks to me, so I'm working on it. I called it The Perfect Pet. 9 family pets, cats and dogs, male and female, large and small, lazy and hyper, housebroken and not, indoor and outdoor, altered and immunized, containable and uncontainable, short-haired but one, none called our house home. And then a female, short-haired, charcoal gray cat appeared on our front doorstep and would not leave. She came with an attitude and her own set of rules, always just out of reach. She chose the kids over us, making us beg for one long stroke of her back, soft as dandelion puffs. She terrorizes the fish in our tank, stalks Cheerios the hamster trembling in his hut. We named her Shadow. Our little boy flings her over his shoulder like a saddlebag. She coddles our girls when they cry from mock injuries. We provide her with a leopard print bed, old t-shirts, hot pink diamond-studded collar, kitty treats, a stocking of trinkets. Our children console us, explain she must have been mistreated by adults at one time. Cats are like people. Once they have been hurt, it takes a while to trust again. Things will get better, you'll see.
James Miller.
I'm honored to be here tonight. Thank you. We were talking in the group earlier, and I like to write about Yakima, so here we go, page 224, Portugal. Silvish. The Moors liked this place. They stayed a while, 400 years. The ramparts of Castelo dos Mouros are well-defined muscles chiseled from red sandstone, hiding dungeon chambers and labyrinthine tunnels. Delicious like the oranges south of Silvish, poets, orators, and historians ruled until their time was up, saith the preceding knights of Santiago. 11 centuries have humbled these hilltop walls. Its cistern died of thirst. Below the fortress, well-fed sheep graze as quietly as the buried religious secrets. The castle and holy cathedral are little compared to the freedom of music found on the rough cobblestone steps downward at Café English on our Lord's Day. The smiling guitarist is a long way from Ecuador. The seductive voice is traditional bossa nova, and she passionately chronicles Brazil's lyrical colonization in Portugal. And I'll take a little license, and there have been a few poems tonight about fathers, and I have one. take a little license also with James Joyce. This is called Portrait of an Artist as My Old Man. Blue smoke of milky oil cools the hard steel ribbon escaping the cutting edge. My old man wore the chuck handle smoothed by 40 years of greasy hands while bent over, loyal to this mechanical leviathan. Broken arcs of rotation, RPMs, round and dizzy around. Both the lathe and Pall Malls sucked the breath out of his lungs and planted him early in salvation. I grew up somewhere between Einstein and that damned lathe. The GI Bill offered a glance into the dusty shaft of light that barely lit up his life. Cornered in the aft of a rusty corrugated shop, cornered by poor timing of the lack of education, still he had the right stuff, pride without fear to put his name on a job. Thank you.
Carol Folsom Hill.
Rules. Fuck the rules. I say, fuck the rules. This is crazy making. Rules are not rules. Rules are rules. Crazy making hurts. Crazy making kills. Trapped. Boxed in. Blocked. Breath is blocked. Fuck the rules. Fuck the crazy making rules. Breath is life. This place. The core of me is this place, the place where I am today. It's the being of me, where it all comes together. It's the wholeness I yearn for. Here in this place, I am at once hurry up, slow down. Soft, strong and soft. Impatient and patient. Loud and quiet. Aggressive and passive. Alone and together. And there is more. Voices for those who are not yet ready. Hear the voice of those who are. Open the path for those in between. See big and far. Now in this place, morning sunlight. At the dining room table, silence holds the sound. Hands moving on paper. Inadina, Mireya, Magdalena, Jim, Nellie, Rosa, Luce, and me. The core of me is this place, the place where I am today. It's the being of me, where it all comes together. It's the wholeness I yearn for. Dan asked me to read a poem by Gail Perlman, New Year's Promises. I haven't really read this through much. I am a teacher and a lover of wild places, and I make these promises to my students. I insist that you always see the face, the strange sweat on the chin of the boy crossing the border in a boxcar, the confusion in the eyes of the caribou approaching the pipeline with her calf, the trapped terror of the chief car thief, and to be raped in his cell, the 16-year-old handcuffed while registering, his stricken mother pleading with the guard. I insist that you risk seeing these faces no matter where they insist you go. This is a lot to risk. I have no maps for where you're going. And there's more, for I am a lover of wild places, places that hold the untamed parts of our hearts, yours and mine. I ask you to look until you see the fragile lichen clinging to the Arctic hillside, the glint of the thin sun on a grizzly's blonde coat, caribou rollicking over the tussocks, a wolf, regal and distant, tracking the herd, razored peaks silhouetted in blazing pink at 2 a.m. The clear water of the Nibu pulling down the valley floor, a relentless searing sun on the treeless tundra. Hundreds and hundreds of unbroken miles, miles and lives we haven't yet slashed to pieces. I ask you to think about what loss means, why everything depends on our saving these places, places that hold the untamed parts of our hearts, yours and mine. I have no maps for where we're going. I ask you to think on these things. The thought police have been pounding us. We hear the words, new words, or old words redefined. Patriot, homeland security, axis of evil, terrorism, enemy combatant, collateral damage, alien. But I insist that you ask what is behind these words. What if a patriot is someone who fights against thought police and unjust war? Security is love and compassion. What if the axis of evil is domination and greed? What if terrorism is winter and no food, illness and no medicine? What if an enemy combatant is someone who torches the fields and holds the patent on the medicine? What if collateral damage is the torn and bloodied face of a child? And what if there is no such thing as an alien? The thought police have been pounding us, and we have no maps. But I ask you to break out of prison, run like hell. Don't stop until you find the truth. I promise I will ask this, and I promise I will not succumb to fear. I will not succumb to fear. I will not succumb to fear. January 2003.
Good morning. We haven't had this reading before, have we? One of the things about this book that, because that pole is over there in my garden, I probably get a little bit more attention on me than these other editors and the other writers in the book. But a caretaker does have the limits, and I do want to look at it, show you a couple of things about how the book is tightly bound by each of the people who made this book. And if you have your book, look at page 27. We did this a little bit in the group that I was in, and then look at Barry's poem, Barry Grimes. Just turn to his pages. And say, look at 142, and then go to page 219. So you just have those few pages for now. It's not just a cover and a collection of poems A to Z. But you look here at Rob's essay on 27, and go into the darkness. Go into the dark part of the essay, in back of the pole, and perhaps you haven't noticed those little words coming out of the beauty bush. So this is Rob's work here, or is it? Or is it? That was a question, because right behind the pole there, between myself and the pole, you can see the letter B. Well, those of you who have seen Barry's poems know that's Barry's signature, so his words are coming right out of the darkness. And if you turn then to 143, and Dan placed these pages, these visual pages, every one of these visual pages, which is a poem. There's more left out than what's included. That's one of the definitions of a poem. So Proud has probably more poems in this book than anyone, but Dan placed this page here next to Barry's, which is, if you notice, that signature there is Marty Levin's signature. And then if you go to page 219, you see Barry's poem, which is here, which is also in this essay. Now, George O'Keeffe says, nobody has time in this world to look at a flower. Well, there are these kinds of very carefully made decisions that bind this book and make it a book with multiple beginnings, middles, and ends all the way through it. So, because of Terry's work and Rob's and Dan's, look for those threads, and also look at the poets that way. People who use the pole consistently over the time. They've got 3 poems in here. We tried to get that, and 3 poems, as you know, will make a really tight little book, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So there are those things going on in here. And those of you in the classes who visited the pole last week, I'd like to invite you to go by again, because I've been working on the pole with your poems, and I'm just going to put these up here. This is what the pole looks like now. What I'd like you to do is to think about writing a poem for Lynn Martin, who will be here in 2 weeks. And in her second elegy, she wrote, this is 20 years ago, I went to the green leafing trees and said, I'm nothing but rags inside. She's going to be here, and she is the poet of the elegy, the poet of loss. And she has walked up and down the steps with Dante in other people's houses with their losses. And she brings the gifts of one who has suffered many losses. And when she canceled her scheduled appearance here with your class, was because she was caretaking her husband, who she married because of his capacity to understand loss in the way that maybe only Rilke can. And so when you read Lynn Martin's poems, you might want to look at the Dueno elegies. You might want to look at the notes, Rilke's notes to those elegies, because she's a very big poet who brings what the poet of loss brings, and that's lots of light. And she'll be here with us for a couple of weeks. If you also look in the garden, if you put a poem on the pole for her. She's going to stay at my house. She told me I was going to be gone. I said, I'm glad you're coming. She says, Jim, you're going to be gone. So, and I hadn't realized my own schedule. So this is, I'll read from a house full of, I want to read this, The Great Round. If you look in the garden, Rilke loved the old roses. And the old roses, 19th century roses, and earlier the ones that go back to Rome, these ladies bloom once a year, and they are fragrant. And their thorns will kill you. They will kill you, and they're blooming right now. But And there are stories about Rilke death having come from the poison of one of these thorns. I think it was not from one of these thorns, but from one of the women. But the silver dollar plant is also blooming in the garden, and I got those from my mother, who I spent part of yesterday with. The great round. My mother hands me a bouquet of dried flowers and points out the dried seed pod she calls silver dollar. She shows me how to extract the seeds and tells me about alternating years of silver pods and purple blossoms. She gives me seeds in a white envelope. I scatter them in the old roses. She doesn't tell me they'll be everywhere. I didn't ask, and now I'm surrounded by a money plant I can't get rid of. I pull an armful of plants from the bed, thinking of my mother's gift in the white envelope of seeds. Arms too full, just as I turn to drop them in the wheelbarrow, they fall from my arms onto the path of bark winding through the roses. I say to myself, cleaning up, I could have asked more questions. This morning, months later, I kneel on the path where these plants fell last summer. Seedlings everywhere, hundreds of them dropped by chance. And you can't get rid of them. These flowers and the poems. And I'll finish with a poem by Manu Santos. Many of you know Manu from his great love of learning, his love of music. He came to this country at 17. He'd never been to school one day in his life. He spoke no English. He spoke no Spanish. He eventually got his driver's license. He passed his driver's license in English. And he also won the Yakima Valley Marathon here last month. And so if you think you're working hard in school, read Manu's poems. Forgotten Voice. My forgotten voice will arise once again, this time, at this vivid moment. I am going to stand firmly to defend my forgotten voice. I don't allow other voices to disturb and destroy my right to spread out my voice. My voice has shut since the God has created me. Now I can't stand it anymore. My dream voice will not die as long as my spirit lives to put this word to a notebook. And Manu is one of the keepers of the notebooks, and he brings his poems by as you do, and drops them there, puts them there in the bowl by chance and by design, and it's a great gift. You've been a great audience. It's been great to hear these poems, and this reading hasn't happened before, so thanks lots.
After the reading, it's been a tradition of the class to go to Red Robin and get us something to drink, get something to eat. Some people get bottomless French fries and pass them around. It's kind of the students' cheap way of getting their stomachs full, I think. But you're welcome to come join us. Thank you very much for coming tonight. And students, after we're done here, make sure we get the tables back in the right spot. In 2 weeks, Lynn Martin will be here. We thought she wasn't going to be, and now she's decided she's going to come, so we're very excited about that. Thanks also to the YVCC Foundation for helping support this. I'm going to finish with one poem, so before we put all our stuff away. This is Manu Santos, and it's Mother's Day, and it's also the day that our president addressed the nation about immigration. So rather than have him have the last word, I'm going to have Manu have the last word on both of those. The wall. Borders wall separates my love to Mom. That wall defeats my dream. You know, in some ways, I feel I am put to jail. That wall is making me to forget my mom because I have not seen her side. 7-year exclusive. I feel the love for my mom is dying little by little. You know, I love my mom very much, but the thing is, I can't see my mom because of that wall. I wish that wall did not exist so we can all go anywhere we want to go. I can't defend my little dream. Thank you for coming.
Happy birthday.